I'm gonna talk about that Mute from Netflix. This movie stars Alexander Skarsgård. It's directed by Duncan Jones, who I'm a fan of. I loved his work Moon, which is one of my favorite sci-fi movies in a long time. Also really like Source Code, which he also
Oh,
directed.
he did Source Code.
Yeah, he did Source Code. And with Warcraft, I didn't see Warcraft. I heard a lot of people talking bad about it. But
What you mean the movie based on the series?
yeah, World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. I didn't see it. I heard a lot of bad things about it. So,
It's just not a coherent movie for us, but I think fans really enjoyed it.
yeah, that's what I heard. For like, if you're a diehard fan of World of Warcraft, it's more appeals to you maybe. But with this one, I didn't even know that this was really coming out. You know, like somebody just I think posted on Facebook or something. It's like, hey, Duncan Jones has a new movie, and I was like, oh wow, okay.
Yeah, you surprised the crap out of me when you're like, "Have you seen Mute?" And I'm like, "What Mute? What's that?"
Yeah, and so he just just out on Netflix, and I was like, okay, he's going back to his bread and butter sci-fi smaller type movies, and that's what you kind of get here with the Mute. And the basic premise of this is Alex Skarsgård plays a mute bartender who goes up against city gangsters in an effort to find his missing girlfriend, because all of a sudden his girlfriend just goes missing one day, and he is set on a mission to go find her. And the reason why Alex Skarsgård's character is mute is because of an accident that happened when he was a child. Now he could get a surgery to fix it because this is set 40 years in the future, so he could get a surgery to fix it, but because of his religion, because he's Amish, it won't allow him to. Like he doesn't even have a phone in the movie until his girlfriend makes him get a phone so she can communicate with him. He's very, being Amish, he's very resistant against technology.
At one point, he's sitting just in a random cafe, and his back is towards the TV. He can't even look at it.
Yeah, because he's just he lives a very simple kind of humble life. They show his house. It's like the small little kind of house. Just maintaining that simple kind of lifestyle.
Also, did you like the? I don't want to break it, but did you like the wink and nod to Moon in Mute?
No, I did not. I'll tell you why.
Okay, no, because I was curious. I thought I was the only one in this group that had seen Moon.
And I'll tell you why I didn't like that, because in this movie, like I said, so yeah, Amish guy who's mute, living in this sci-fi type world. Hearing that, you may get a little interested and go like, oh, that sounds kind of interesting, But the thing is, in this film, they don't do anything with it. Like him being Amish and living in this future world, they don't really do anything much with that, I don't think.
They do it sparingly, very sparingly. There's actually one decent scene that we'll talk about later with the library. But yeah, I see what you mean. It isn't brought up too much, which is a shame.
Yeah, like that's not really played up to any effect. And then you have, him being mute, like in movies like, for instance, like The Shape of Water with Sally Hawkins, where she was a mute character. And even though she's, he doesn't know sign language, but Sally Hawkins knows sign language in Shape of Water, you still, even if Sally Hawkins probably didn't use sign language in that movie, you still get a sense of what she's thinking and what she's feeling. And you have two characters in that film who begin a romantic relationship in The Shape of Water, who don't speak to each other at all, but you still get this great connection with them. And this movie, when he's with his girlfriend, I mean, they're supposed to be really in love and really together, but you don't really get any sense of that feeling. And a lot of people in the movie, they go throughout it asking him, why did she ever be with you and a freak like you? And, you're
like, yeah.
Yeah, like why? Okay, I get that. Okay, you're Alexander Skarsgård. I mean, dude is a good-looking, tall, motherfucker. I get that. Okay, it's Alexander Skarsgård, but still, it's like, why did she fall in love with this guy, the guy that can't speak? Like, what about him made her fall in love with him? Like,
you get told a lot in this movie, especially by her, that he's a beautiful man and he doesn't need words. His actions are beautiful. He doesn't need them, but most of the movie is just this dumb brute that goes around really having with his head cut off, just running around looking for his girlfriend.
Yeah, and like him being mute would give a chance to show off. You think with like how good of an actor Alex Skarsgård is, but it really doesn't. I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't do really anything interesting with his face, so you don't really get a good sense of what he's thinking or what he's feeling in the moment. Like people like Sally Hawkins in The Shape of Water, or
Yeah.
another movie, Hush, if you ever saw that.
Oh yeah.
With that woman, she was also mute, and she was also deaf in that movie too, if I remember correctly. Yeah, she was also deaf,
Yeah.
and so I mean, there's been people who've played that where you really get a sense of how good of an actor they can be, or like Ryan Gosling in Drive, for instance, even though he's not mute in that movie,
Oh yeah.
but he
But you
speaks,
get a sense of his character even without him saying much.
yeah, like he speaks very sparingly, but you still get a sense like his, like what type of guy he is. This one, yeah, like I said, he just like it's just he's some tall brute. Like you don't really get a sense of who he is as a character, and then so that relies mostly on the people who give most character is Paul Rudd and Justin Theroux's characters
Right.
who is there in this movie as well, and
They
they're
feel like they're in a completely different movie.
sorta, yeah. I mean, they feel like because they're these slimy kind of criminal people, because what they are in the film is they're these two surgeons who are combat medics. Because the film hints that there's like this big war going on in Kandahar, and then a lot of U.S. soldiers have kind of gone AWOL, which is interesting, but that doesn't really come back into play really that much in the movie. And that these
Kind of forgotten about after a certain point, if not for 1 point. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 points, both at this one same location.
yeah, I mean, pretty much, and yeah, like they're these two surgeons who are these combat medic soldiers, and they do a lot of work for these gangsters, and basically because they're trying to, like, Paul Rudd's trying to earn cards, he's trying to earn identification passports to get him and his daughter out of Berlin, Germany, because that's where the film is set, and in Berlin, and a lot of the sci-fi world itself, like the whole Berlin, Germany, the sci-fi world, it's just Blade Runner. It's honestly copy and paste Blade Runner. Like literally, it's like they were tearing down the set for Blade Runner 2049, and then Duncan Jones ran up and said, "No, that's okay. Don't tear none of that down. Just keep all them visual effects and props. We finna shoot a movie real quick. Don't worry. No, you ain't got to tear that down."
Put in they had some dress shirts and character actors left over from American Hustle, and they got Paul Rudd was passing by on his way to the Disney Marvel Studios, and they're like, "Hey, you got time for this character?" And he's like, "Do I have to shave?" No. All right, good. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much because the world, I mean, the future world that it's set in is just every single cyberpunk future world you've ever seen, like in Blade Runner, like in Ghost World.
Except, I would say, I think you're missing one key aspect.
And what is that?
Blade Runner is at least more or less has a story. With
Yeah.
characters that eventually end in doing something. This movie feels like an art film. It feels like a German art film, but with the set and tone of Blade Runner. And it's just, but then it adds a bit of American Hustle where it's a bit more lighthearted with Paul Rudd's character and him just being a dick.
Yeah.
And like it feels like two completely different movies. One in itself is a guy who's could have been an interesting movie where it's about a Blade Runner kind of not dystopia, just the future, and how hard that is to make it as an individual who's handicapped.
Right.
And if you can't, and someone who's not tech, the idea of not being tech savvy or being tech unsavvy in a technoverse is actually something that's rarely explored.
Right.
And that would have, I thought that's where they were going with, oh shit, it's a neo-noir, but the guy has no tools to help him out. He's got to do everything from this kind of form, and that might give him an advantage. No.
Yeah.
Not really.
I mean,
it's just yeah.
It doesn't add anything to the story. Like him being mute or him being Amish doesn't really add all that much to the story. Like him being in the sci-fi world.
Yeah. Do you want to get into spoilers? Because we can't really talk about more without really spoiling it. So I will say before we go into spoilers, though, the movie looks beautiful. I actually love the cinematography. I like Paul Rudd. I like the actors in it. I think they do a fine job for what they do. Alan Skarsgård, unfortunately, I've seen what he's capable of, and I know he's talented.
Right.
And seeing him not given the chance to really do anything made me sad, especially for a mute role, which we don't get very often.
Right.
And that's something that's always found creatively interesting. and they don't really do that. So you feel kind of bad. And he's one of the main focuses of the story.
Right.
So all you're left with is a very pretty movie with a decidedly pretty good sound, decent soundtrack, some great visuals, good cinematography, and kind of nice style. But ultimately, the story is almost inconsequential.
Okay. Okay. Let me give a quick synopsis. Like, let me quick review real quick then before we get into spoilers.
Yeah.
I think it has interesting concepts in it, like they said, being a mute guy, being Amish, living in this futuristic world, and what that means for somebody like that to live in this type of world, and he's so behind. That's interesting, but they don't do anything with it. I think the world itself is bland and uninteresting. There's nothing really special about it. I think you can see that honestly in other movies like Blade Runner and Ghost in the Shell, any cyberpunk movie. They don't do anything new with the sci-fi world. This sci-fi world, just like everything else, apparently when it's the future, everything is always at nighttime. Everything's neon, and there's never daytime. It's
Gotta show
always
off those graphics.
it's always night in the future. It's never day. And then you have people like his girlfriend who you don't really feel any type of connection between them. And then when she goes missing, it's like okay, I mean it's a super simplistic story which can work sometimes, but it's like I don't have much of a connection between you two. And then all the other women besides his girlfriend are prostitutes in the movie.
Yeah,
I
I was
mean,
about to put that out. Yeah,
all the other major women with speaking lines are all
or
prostitutes.
transvestites,
Yeah,
or
transvestites.
transvestites, and or also kind of blurring the line of gender identity and gay, but also maybe bi and
Yeah,
like yeah, it's just I know we're a liberal. I know there's like liberal stuff in Germany and Amsterdam and shit, but like give me something other than just brooding guys and
yeah,
prostitutes.
yeah. Like all the women are just prostitutes. And then you have Paul Rudd and Justin Theroux's character, who like I said with you have a mute character, so most of the character like personality wise goes to those two. I think Paul Rudd. I mean, honestly, like you say, he feels like he's totally in a different movie, and then most of his like tough guy dialogue is just calling people either faggot or fruitcake. That's all his tough guy dialogue. Like, oh, you faggot, oh, you fruitcake. It's like, the fuck is this, a 90s
Yeah,
action
he's
movie?
just a rude dick.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's not, like, really that interesting. Like, at least with some slimy characters, they're somewhat charming. I don't think he's charming at all. And then you have Justin Theroux's character, who there's this super weird subplot that goes on with him, which you'll get into in spoilers, that adds nothing to the story at all. It's like, why is this even here in the first place? It's like that. It just adds nothing at all to the story, other than to make you feel danger for a certain specific character. It doesn't add anything at all to the
Who's
story.
more of a plot device than an actual character.
I mean, pretty much. So me trying to think of like things I actually liked about this movie. I can't think of any. Honestly, I wouldn't even watch
Damn.
this. I wouldn't even watch this movie on Netflix. Honestly, I mean,
Really?
no.
I
I
didn't
mean,
know
I wouldn't even
that.
suggest people do that. I mean, I just think there's nothing going on here. I mean, like, and a movie recently we talked about on Netflix, Cloverfield Paradox. At least that had, I think, solid acting in it. I think
Oh Christ.
Gugu and Bathara is really trying in that movie. I think there's some solid performances in that. It's just everything else was just really bad. But I think at least like, okay, this is super generic, space station movie, whatever. But at least you had some people that that had some good performances in there. This one, I don't even think the performance is that good. Honestly, I think it's just bad all around. Like I wouldn't even, like I said, I give it a big thumbs down. I say don't even check it out on Netflix. It's pointless, and it's a shame too because I like Duncan Jones, and then at the end of the movie, it made me feel bad because at the end he dedicates this film in the memory of David Jones and his mother, and and I love David Bowie, and I'm like, damn, why'd you have to make this movie dedicated to David Bowie, man? Like this movie is trash. Like why the fuck, like why you had to make me feel bad about doing that? But it's a shame. But yeah, I mean, if you want to let's get into spoiler talk right now.
Yeah, I don't know about you, man. I think I'm more easier on it in that I would say it's right where it needs to be. It's a Netflix movie that you don't need to pay money for if you already got a subscription. If you want to watch it, give it a watch. You might find some interesting middlings of ideas. I actually think it's kind of interesting. I've never said it's good technically or it does them well, but I like some of the ideas and I think they do well enough with what they have. It's just unfortunately that what they have isn't very good.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. I agree. I feel just bad, but I don't think this is trash. I just think it's it didn't know where to focus. Oddly enough, I'm going to make a pun, but Mute, oddly enough, never really finds its voice.
Okay.
But I'm being completely serious. It never really finds what it means to be. It just takes so many elements, but never congeals into what it wants to be. But yeah, man, I say Netflix, check it out if you want. If you don't, you won't be missing too much.
Yeah.
So
No,
now we got that out of the way, Josh, since you are
Uh,
the bringer of the movie, I will allow you the conch to talk about spoilers. Go
yeah.
at it, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's how much all that display. Like, there's so what I was talking about with the Justin Theroux character, a weird subplot that he has, which is the fact that he's a pedophile in the movie. And it, like I said, why is this even in this movie? It adds nothing to this movie. And then the fact that Paul Rudd's character, who has a young daughter, would even be friends with this guy, and he makes creepy, weird remarks about his daughter, about his daughter's babysitter. And then the daughter, it's herself. She's just a plot device. Like I don't even think she even has. Does she even speak in the movie? I don't think
She
even.
speaks one time at the very end, just like the main character, and both are disappointing usage of language.
Yeah,
That actually would have been, you know what? I know we've gotten into spoilers, and I want to just say it. Of the things this movie could have done, your main character being mute and then finally being able to speak, if they're going for the whole angle of like this guy's so beautiful and the reason why she fell in love, and you as characters, you realize that he is a gentle soul and he's being pushed into this kind of idea in this dark world, and yet the people he meets, despite them being cruel and evil, they do leave a little better knowing him, and that's the tragedy of his character.
right.
That could have been interesting, and what he says is more powerful, and just his one line of dialogue could be something so profound that could at least be interesting. That could have been like, all right, you got one time to say something and it was with a bang, and the little girl who didn't say much, she says one thing and that goes with a bang. Well, all these other characters were spouting nonsense and acting tough,
Right.
and it was these meek individuals that really had the most profound. That could at least would have been something, and would have followed the German expressionism kind of movie that it kind of almost attempted to kind of make fun of,
Mm-hmm.
because there is satire in this, and it's like it's like Van, it's like RoboCop light satire. Like if I were to call it RoboCop satire, it would quake in its boots from being kicked in its ass by Paul Verhoeven,
Mm. Right.
because it doesn't even attempt it, or it barely. And when it does, it lands on its face every time.
I mean, pretty much because like, and the whole thing, like the fact that the daughter doesn't really speak that much, and he doesn't really speak that much. They could have done something with that of how you have these two individuals who have really no power in this type of society, and like kind of they do have the kind of this connection because what happens with like Alexander Skarsgård character and then Paul Rudd, and like they keep kind of running into each other and meeting kind of some of the same people in his
For really stupid reasons.
yeah, in his journey to like go find his girlfriend. Like they keep kind of interacting with the people that like they know they know, and then he knows.
He goes to one place, literally goes to one place where that also normally in a movie, those characters who whooped his ass and are pointing a gun, there would be a point where there would be kind of comeuppance for these characters, or at least something happening to him. Not necessarily comeuppance, but at least something. He shows up and he makes a realization that he could have made anywhere,
Yeah.
and he just happens to make it then and there, and then like goes, and it had nothing to do with anything. I know later it's explained that the reason he's getting these texts he thinks is from his girlfriend, but they're not. But it was kind of leading him on like a wild goose chase just to get himself killed.
Right.
But even so, also after the first time that happens, you don't put two and two together that that's the case, like at all.
Right.
Like it's the like, yeah, man. As much as I like this movie, yeah, the whole point with the whole pedophilia thing, that is for a there's a mentions of it spattering where okay, this is just kind of like a creep, kind of reminding me of Matthew McConaughey, where he's like watching these schoolgirls,
Yeah.
and he's just like, You know how I like is like, you know what I love about them? I get old and they stay just the same.
Right.
And you're like, all right, that's creepy, but he at least could be kind of charming about it.
Uh.
But
Yeah.
that's it.
Uh,
And all of a sudden now it's pissing off Paul Rudd. Like,
yeah.
oh man, oh fuck you up, talk about my daughter. And he's just like, all right, dude, I get it, but why would you be friends with this guy if you're
Yeah.
like crushing his hand all the time?
Yeah. Like this dude is a pedophile. Like, he likes young girls. Like this. So why are you still around this guy?
If it disturbs you that much.
Yeah. Like, and maybe if they show like they have this deep connection because they were in the war together
Yeah.
and something like that. But
But that's just like telling, not showing.
yeah. Yeah.
Like Paul Rudd, it would have been all right if Paul Rudd was like an asshole, but for him, he gives like he normally would kick the shit out of him, and he just gives him like a hey, and just gives kind of like a look like stop being like he does one time where he's like, hey, stop being an asshole,
Right.
and like all right, cool, that's being playful, and that's what I thought the relationship was gonna be, is that he recognizes it, but then when they bring it up, and it's just like you're sick man, and I got my daughter, and that's fucked up, and you're like, it could have been like, hey man, it would have been an interesting twist if it was, hey man, I found it. You need to encrypt that shit.
Mm.
And that would have been an interesting, like, oh shit, he knows, and he has his daughter around him still.
Mm-hmm.
And that, but like he just lets that go because they've always been like brothers.
Uh-huh.
And you just know he's fucked up, but you deal with it.
Yeah.
But again, in the end, it has no consequence. Nothing bad happens to the girl.
Right.
She's kind of like,
She,
assumingly gets given back to her grandmother, assuming that the guys he beat up at the club don't eventually find Alan Skarsgård's character and kill him
right.
because they clearly saw him and he stole his car and did a bunch of other shit.
Yeah.
Like it ends in a way where you're like kind of happy ending, but it's purposeless
Mm. Yeah.
for him. Like the movie wasn't so it feels like two movies at once. The Paul Rudd story about like a guy who was an ex AWOL and has PTSD in this cybertronic world and trying to get a license, that could have been a neat hour and 70-minute movie.
Right.
Could have been an interesting 70-minute science fiction movie, maybe even a 3-part pilot, like a mini series, I would say. Could have been interesting. Like it doesn't have much levity, but it can go for a little while. And then like cramming this into like this neo-noir tech unsavvy character, which there's one time in which I thought that was clever, or at least interesting. Not clever, but just at least interesting, was when he was at the library and voice is like, can you say into the speaker, hey man, what kind of book are you looking for, and tell us what it is. And there's no input for him to type in. It's only by voice. And so he looks and he has to go through every single book looking for the number.
Mm.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That shows, oh, okay, that's just his kind of life. If there was more of that and just showing how cumbersome life is when the world is moving without you and they don't give a crap about someone who can't keep up, that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I still stand by what I said, but you can't deny the fact that
it is very interesting to know that, like, so Duncan Jones, like, this is a movie that he co-wrote, and Warcraft was a movie that and Warcraft was also a movie he co-wrote, but I don't think he didn't write for Moon, nor did he write for Source Code.
That might be why they're better.
Yeah, so maybe it's just maybe writing's not his thing. Maybe
speaking of Moon.
Yeah, I mean, Moon, and that's what I really hate about Moon being in this, because because he said this is a spiritual sequel to Moon, and
really,
yeah, he's gonna make another movie in the whole trilogy. He's gonna make it a trilogy, so he's gonna make another movie based in this world, I guess.
Oh Lord.
And then everybody knows, if you watch, I urge you to watch Moon. Moon is really fantastic. Moon is wonderful.
No, Moon is like a genuinely good movie.
Yeah.
And Source Code, even with all its faults of Source Code, I think is a genuinely good movie too.
Yeah, that's a fun sci-fi movie. That's really fun. And then they make a loose connection. They make Sam Rockwell's character from Moon being in this, like he's on the TV, and then you hear him like he's like in court or something like that.
Yeah, he has court, and like it's kind of like a spoiler for the end of the movie, basically.
Yeah.
Because he has like I don't even want to spoil it. Like, you know what? Forget it. Yeah, there's just like a thing in there, and he's at court, and then like one more time, there's like a quick news thing and you can see it just in the background. You can kind of see like little things about it, and I just went,
Yeah.
okay, that would have been a neat little thing if this movie was what I wanted it to be. But if this was if this was a satire on neo noir, um, it needed to at least tell me that's what it was.
Yeah.
Like it's too subtle for its own good. Yeah, man.
It's a real shame.
Again, I think Netflix is where it needs to be. I know people who have watched it who actually genuinely liked it,
Yeah.
even with all its faults, and kind of dug it. I'm leaning more into that camp, but I've had at least 24 hours to think it over, and it didn't take me long to go immediately after the movie. Like, what was the point of this? What was the point of that? What was this and what was that? But even despite all that, I don't know, man. I still want to see 90s. I still want you to check it out. I think you might dig some of the aspects of it, but if you don't, I ain't gonna be mad. I ain't gonna be like, oh man, you're totally missing a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, my main thing is really the technology. I really want you guys to talk about that more.
I mean,
Okay, so the phone he gets,
it's nothing really interesting.
his phone that he gets is actually kind of cool.
I'm really.
I like the future looking phone, even though it's old school. That looks kind of cool.
I mean, the phone.
I
is,
miss the kind of like flip phone razor stuff. So it's kind of slides out, but the entire top is a touchscreen, so it's like a mix of the two. And it looks kind of like a mix of like a retro future style. And I'm like, man, can I get me one of those? I'll trade my stupid ass iPhone for that.
It looks like a shitty BlackBerry. It's a shitty BlackBerry.
You know what?
Maybe
that's why I like BlackBerries or like Razor phones. Like
I was like,
screw iPhone, man. Or there's also like, I want to talk about other stuff. There's a guy that. You know what? Never mind. I was going to talk about the technology, and there's just not enough there.
I mean, because it's not interesting. I'm telling you, none of the technology here is that interesting. Like they go to like some market where they can it's like a virtual reality thing. But again, you've seen that a bunch of times in way other stuff. Like you've seen that a bunch of other stuff. And I mean, and another reason to hate this movie is this one of the women from the Dora Milaje. She's in here. The woman that Move or You Will Be Moved. She's in this. And she's a prostitute in this too. I would go, oh, it's you. That's like, oh, shit, it's you in this. But she has like a very small part, like some lines. I was like, damn.
Borderline useless.
Yeah, she's barely in the movie. I was like, oh, but when I saw her, I was like, oh, it's you. Yeah, what you do? Yeah, hey.
Also, one last question, even spoilers. She said like the girlfriend had a secret, and the secret was basically, oh, we didn't even mention that. Yeah, Paul Rudd, basically way back, it's revealed later that the reason why that Paul Rudd and his other friend and his daughter are even in the story is because Mute's girlfriend, because I don't even care about the guy's name. It's not important enough.
Right.
Mute's girlfriend used to date and be with Paul Rudd's character Cactus.
Right.
So they had a daughter together, and that's the girl that Cactus owns. And then what happened was, I guess the secret was that she was trying to reveal was, oh, well, I have a daughter, and I want you to know that. But she never gets around to it because he basically knocks her out and then basically suffocates her to death.
Yeah.
Because she threatened to take his daughter away.
Yeah.
Basically, like I think why she was getting all that money was so that she could get papers as well. Mm-hmm. I get like, how was she going to get her daughter back? Like, what was the plan here? Mm-hmm. I think it's alluded to that she was going to tell the military about him being AWOL, so that he would be taken away, and then she would get custody of the daughter.
Right.
I think that's what it was, but it's so not set up and done well. Especially when he meets with the grandmother, who you're like, oh, I don't even understand what you're saying. And I'm only able to understand because they didn't even bother to translate what she's saying, like they did in sometimes.
Right.
Like in German, you're just like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't hate this movie.
No.
If I give it a rental, it's still a rental. But man, like, yeah, I can understand if you call it some old bullshit. I feel bad though, because I actually kind of like some parts of it. I just wish it was better.
Yeah, I give it a just big thumbs down. I'd say don't even watch it on Netflix. Don't bother. Don't waste your time. Big thumbs down for me. Hello, thanks for checking out our content. If you liked it, let us know, and if you didn't, let us know that as well. If you want to see more content, we post every Saturday on SoundCloud and YouTube at The Afternoon Tune. You can also find us through various social medias, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, all one word at The Afternoon Tune. And if you don't deal with any of that social media stuff, you can also find us through our email at theafternoontune@gmail.com. And don't forget to always